Billions around the world are preparing to ring in the new year after muted festivities last year, despite Omicron concerns putting a dampener on the revelry. While some parties in major cities have been cancelled due to rising infections, South Africa, where the mutant strain was first detected, has lifted a curfew to allow the end-of-year celebrations to go ahead. New Zealand kicked off the celebrations after easing its rules on public gatherings, holding a lights display in Auckland. Australia's largest city, Sydney, has also decided to press ahead with a firework display that will light up the city's harbour, despite one of the world's fastest-growing caseloads. The family fireworks took place 3 hours before midnight, with pyrotechnics illuminating the Sydney Opera House in a stunning display. But just hours before the celebrations were due to begin, Australian health authorities reported a record 32,000 new virus cases, many of them in Sydney. The first places to see in the new year were the Line Islands and the Pacific Island nation of Kiribati, 14 hours ahead of London. Baker Island, an atoll south of Hawaii, will be the last territory in 2021. Because of the surge, authorities were expecting far smaller crowds than in pre-pandemic years, when as many as 1 million revelers would crowd inner Sydney. Dubai is planning a pyrotechnics spectacle at the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest tower, while the Northern Emirate of Ras Al Khaimah will attempt to break 2 world records with a huge fireworks display. In Rio, celebrations on Copacabana Beach will go ahead in a scaled-back format, though crowds of revelers are still expected. In South Korea's capital Seoul, the annual New Year's Eve bell-ringing ceremony was cancelled for the second straight year due to a surge in cases. Officials said a pre-recorded video of this year's bell-ringing ceremony would instead be broadcast online and on television. The ceremony had previously drawn tens of thousands of people. Last year's cancellation was the first since the ceremony began in 1953. South Korean authorities also plan to close many beaches and other tourist attractions along the east coast, which usually swarm with people hoping to catch the year's first sunrise on New Year's Day. On Friday, South Korea said it will extend tough distancing rules for another 2 weeks. In India, millions of people were planning to ring in the new year from their homes, with nighttime curfews and other restrictions taking the fizz out of celebrations in large cities including New Delhi and Mumbai. Authorities have imposed restrictions to keep revelers away from restaurants, hotels, beaches and bars amid a surge in cases fueled by Omicron. But some places, including Goa, a tourist paradise, and Hyderabad, an information technology hub, have been spared from night curfews thanks to smaller numbers of infections, although other restrictions still apply. In Hong Kong, about 3,000 people plan to attend a New Year's Eve concert featuring local celebrities including boy band Mirror. The concert will be the first big New Year's Eve event held since 2018, after events were cancelled in 2019 due to political strife and last year because of the pandemic. In China, the Shanghai government cancelled events including an annual light show along the Huangpu River in the city center that usually draws hundreds of thousands of spectators. There were no plans for public festivities in Beijing, where popular temples have been closed or had limited access since mid-December. The government has called on people to avoid leaving the Chinese capital if possible and requires tests for travelers arriving from areas with infections. Popular temples in the eastern Chinese cities of Nanjing, Hangzhou and other major cities cancelled traditional New Year's Eve lucky bell ringing ceremonies and asked the public to stay away. But in Thailand, authorities were allowing New Year's Eve parties and firework displays to continue, albeit with strict safety measures imposed. They were hoping to slow the spread of the Omicron variant while also softening the blow to the country's battered tourism sector. New Year's Eve prayers, which are usually held in Buddhist temples around Thailand, will be held online instead.